Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Music to Compose You podcast. I'm Margaret Wasik, and today we're taking a bit of a break from our foray through the Beethoven Appassionata Sonata, but I've got something really special to share with you, and it's an interview with my friend and piano tuner, Marc Wienert. If you've ever wondered about piano tuning, why piano tuning is important, why people get into this profession, and the deeper secrets that lie within, then Marc Wiener is the go-to person. He makes it an art, a philosophy, a way of life, and it really goes beyond what we think. And so much so that there was a New York Times best-selling book written about this man. And it's not often that one finds a book written about a piano tuner and pianos in general, and it's a real page turner. I highly recommend this book, Grand Obsession by Perry Nyes. When I read it back in 2008, I took notes, and it struck such a chord, no pun intended, with me. And I thought, gosh, to have such a intriguing person with such an amazing approach that was a spiritual, metaphysical approach to piano tuning reminded me of reading about Pythagoras. I said, I can't believe that there's a person like this that exists. And when I finally got the opportunity to have Marc come and tune my piano, well, we became fast friends. And so you'll find this amazing conversation that we go into a lot of rabbit holes. In part one of these two parts, you'll hear about meeting Marc, what is behind his intent to start piano tuning, how did he fall into this profession, and what he brings to the table. And if you listen to episode 1 of this podcast, you heard about my magical piano and what makes it magical. Well, it's Marc. And we're going to go into that. And I think you'll have a lot of fun. Even if you're not interested in pianos, I guarantee you this episode will have something in it for everybody.
Welcome to Music to Compose You, where the timeless melodies of classical music intertwine with narratives of personal transformation. Join me each week at my Steinway piano on a journey through the symphonies of life. We explore how the power of music shapes our stories, ignites our passions, and leads us towards profound inner growth and physical healing. From the gentle cascades of a Bach prelude to the triumphant crescendo of a Beethoven sonata, each episode will resonate with the melodies of our experiences, inviting you to discover the transformative magic of classical music. Thanks, Marc, for being on the podcast. And we've known each other for almost 10 years now. And it's been such a fun journey exploring the world of pianos and sound and frequencies and all this stuff. And well, let's just start with the question how you came to become a piano tuner.
Okay, that's easier. I was studying film scoring at Berklee College of Music, and it was costing a lot of money, and my student loans were skyrocketing, and I realized it was an unsustainable venture, and I was confused in my life and uncertain what to do. And my mother suggested, Marc, why don't you look into piano tuning? It keeps you in the music space, but gives you a way of earning a living. So
wise words.
Happens to be that in Boston, one of the best piano tuning schools available was there, and I was able to. I withdrew from Berklee and tried to enter into the course study of piano tuning, and it was very near the beginning of the semester, and they hemmed and hawed, and I begged and begged. And they finally said, come in and take a test. And I took a test, and I guess I must have passed that test because they immediately enrolled me.
Hmm. Well, do you remember what kind of tests they asked?
Yes, it was very specific. They demonstrated unison tuning, and so there was one string that was remaining constant and a second string that they were moving. I guess with a tuning hammer, I should be clear to other people who are listening what that means. So somebody was turning a tuning pin and causing the second string to move relative to the first string that was remaining constant. And it was up to me as they went above and below that note that I would indicate when I heard them at the crossing point where the bow strings were in tune with each other. So
Wow.
on the way, if they were below, if the second string was below the note, they would raise it to be above the note. And I was to indicate what point did they pass the clean unison to end up above. And they would go above and below. And each time I was to indicate when the two notes were equal to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, I was able to do that without difficulty.
Yeah. So now that you are teaching me how to tune, I see this as like such a new and exciting way to hear. How has that changed for you from that first test, hearing when something is clean and the unison is in tune versus now? Has this experience changed for you, evolved over time? And if so, how?
Are we talking specifically about unison tuning?
Yes.
Um,
And let's clarify for our listeners what unison tuning is.
okay. In the piano, some notes have multiple strings. So the hammer hits multiple strings simultaneously. And all three strings have to be the exact same note. So when you're tuning one string to another string to be exactly the same note, that's called a unison, as opposed to an interval, where
Mm-hmm.
you might be tuning a string to be a third or a fourth away from the object string, let's say. And so unison is tuning two strings to be exactly the same pitch or hertz or vibrations per second, or frequency, or whatever word you want to use.
Mm-hmm.
So unison tuning has become, well, I think this is the natural course of any evolution, has become simpler and easier for me.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of a piano tuning journey, it's typically one of the most difficult things.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For sure. And, now having watched you tune over the years so many times, I'm always stunned and amazed that you can carry on conversations while tuning, that you've gotten to be so sensitive to those vibrations. And so obviously you must be doing something more than hearing. Are you hearing or feeling the vibrations in your body? Like, how do you do that?
Well, I think chat and tune maybe is not really a central topic. I don't know of anyone else who does chat and tune. Okay. I've been given a gift, and the gift includes chat and tune.
That's insane. That is so crazy. That's like juggling 1,200 things at one time. I can't even, when the students I have always laugh at me because I might be saying something to them and then they start playing, and then I I cannot talk while I hear playing, or when I play, I have those 2 channels are so on opposite ends of the spectrum in my brain. So they always laugh, like, because I go into only one channel, but you obviously could do this incredible thing that you operate on multiple channels and you always get it right. Let's, you know, let's just cut to how we met because it was sort of an interesting story. And I'm just going to give a little bit of my background. I think the year was about 2005 or 6 or something like that. I don't remember when the book came out, but the book was called Grand Obsession by Perry Nyes, and it was it was all the buzz in the musical community and outside of it. It became a New York Times bestseller, a novel actually about piano and the inner world of pianos and piano technicians and what goes into making a great piano. I read it and I loved it, and I was fascinated because you turn out to be kind of like the superhero at the end of the book. That I'm not going to give away how this book like ends, but that you brought the piano's original tone that the author fell in love with back. And I said to myself, wow, I really want to meet this guy. I would love to explore the journey of how to tune the piano to a different frequency. And I've talked about a little bit how we first went into that exploration of tuning the piano from the standard pitch of 440 to 444, which was, we were actually going between those two things, like, should it be 432? Should it be 444? We were really trying to find a more healthy, a more resonant way to approach the piano. And I asked so many different tuners, let's bring the piano up to 444. And everybody said it can't be done. But you came along and you said, yeah, let's do it. Where do you want to go with this? Which I thought was so incredible. Let's just talk a second for those people that are interested in, because there's a lot of talk in the musical community in the last few years, especially about working outside of the standard pitch of 440 and all the benefits of going up to 444. For those pianists and tuners out there that want to try this, what are the steps involved in doing that?
In raising the pitch of a piano from 440 to 444?
Yes.
Well, let me go back to something you said previously. I think it can't be done. It was inaccurate. I'm unwilling to do it would have been more accurate.
Okay.
Or perhaps I've never done it before, or I'm unable to do it. But unable to do it doesn't make sense because there's a tuning pin and a string attached to it. And you can turn that pin to your heart's content, up and down and up and down and up and down. And let's say it's an A for simplicity. You can go up to 450. You can go down to 420. You can do anything with that tuning pin. If you're going up, you will eventually find a point where the string may break.
Yeah.
Perhaps not widely known fact is that piano wire, it was determined by the great thinkers of the piano industry that piano wire sounds better when it's a certain percentage of the path towards its breaking point. So all piano wire is pulled tightly enough that it's fairly close to its breaking point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, strings break for other reasons, metal fatigue, so on and so forth, or deterioration at a termination point or whatever. But assuming that all of that is robust, then there's still a tension at a given speaking length at which the string will break. But going from 440 to 444 is hardly the break zone for modern piano wire. So there's no harm, no foul in raising an A from 440 to 444 in terms of any fear of string breakage. And then you just follow through like any normal tuning. You set the A and kaboom, you tune the rest of the piano. and maybe some tuners that are using an electronic tuning device, they may start on note number 1. They have the flexibility of doing that because they're not creating structure themselves. The machine's creating structure. But that number 1 note will take into consequence that they calibrated their tuning device for 444 instead of for 440. So it's just a question of follow through. You set your device or you set your A to 444 and you tune the piano like you've always done. So no mystery there. You just raise the pitch, lower the pitch. It's something that's very common. Often pianos are below 440. Let's say you enter a room and the piano's at 436. Well, raising 436 to 440 is hardly different than raising from 440 to 444 in terms of the mechanics of what you have to do in order to achieve that change.
Okay. But yet it seemed to be like I was asking for some huge thing. Is it because it requires multiple tunings to get the piano to set to that new?
Well, it would require multiple tunings to get the piano to stabilize. And depending on your skill with pitch raising, whether you're able to accurately anticipate how the final tuning is going to come out, then you may have to do multiple tunings to go from 440 to 444. And certainly if you wanted to achieve a high level of accuracy, you would need more than one tuning to do it.
Okay.
But other than that, again, the work of manipulating the physical matter so that the pitch goes up and down in the piano is work that's done all the time. Although rarely done, piano tuners are sometimes called upon to lower the pitch. Either way, lowering or raising is more work than doing a fine tuning where some notes are tuned slightly higher, some notes are tuned slightly lower in order to create an ideal alignment.
Now, this is really where the muffin breaks free from the pan, because there's one thing about tuning. There is a piano that is in tune, and then there is Marc Wienert's tuning, which is a whole other level of tuning. And I'm not the only person to say this.
This is a total embarrassment.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm going to embarrass you now.
Excuse me for interrupting.
Yeah,
Let
sorry.
me just say quickly, for all those other fellows in the tuning community, I don't have any special sauce.
Okay, but we're going to investigate. What is that sauce?
I don't have any magic tools that no one else has but me.
Yeah, okay.
Operating in the same zero-sum game that Pythagoras established for all of us thousands of years ago.
Okay. But okay, you're modest and I'm the one saying it. So your piano tunings are special. And I know this because I've been around pianos all my life. I've had a ton of different piano tuners, but when you tuned my piano, something magical happened. It's very hard to describe it. It was, well, to me, it felt like my world changed, and it was beyond the piano. It was, I could feel energetically a shift. Now, I know that we changed the tuning from the standard of a 440 and we went into a 444 at that point. But that beside that, it just was so beautiful. It was so pearlescent. And in the book, Grand Obsession, where you play a role in trying to restore the sound that the author fell in love with when she walked into this shop in New York City on 56th Street looking for her piano, or 58th Street, was it 58th Street, looking for her piano, fell in love with this deep sounding piano, which she named Marlena because it reminded her of the voice of Marlene Dietrich. She couldn't wait to get it home. And then once she did get it home, it didn't have the tone. And you at the end were the magician that brought the tone back. Now, your tuning has been described, and tuning was a big part of that.
Well, but voicing was the core issue.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so now describe what voicing
tragically discovered that tuning was also a necessary component for her to have the peak experience that she dubbed Marlena.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a
So,
combination of the tuning
and the voicing.
and the voicing. Let's start first with the tuning.
And
So
444 had nothing to do with her
correct.
experience.
All right. But it was, would you say it was in the alignment in those ratios? Again, you mentioned that you're just doing what Pythagoras started,
Well, no,
right?
I just said that Pythagoras created the goalposts within which you have to operate. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you do something within those goalposts and within the establishment of those ratios that is, I don't know, it's like entering Alice's Wonderland. Like it's a portal to something else. And with that, I know you're modest, but can you describe a little bit of what your journey has been like to get to that sensitivity towards those alignments, those intervals?
Well, uh, I pay homage to two experiences in my life that were transformative. Number one, which is mentioned in the book, was the special chord that another piano tuner gave me, chord and arpeggio, that could be used to allow the piano to communicate to you what its requirements would be. However, that's a pure data stream, that chord, that has to be interpreted. So there's a subjectivity to the use of that chord. It's not an objective tool. And then the other experience was the opportunity to tune the same piano over and over again in a relatively short amount of time. I was hired to tune the same piano month after month for as long as I cared to. And of course, each time I went back, the piano was more in tune. I had a better starting point, let's say, than the previous tuning. So for me, that was an opportunity to reach for higher ground. I tried to do a better, quote unquote, better and better tuning each time. Now, maybe that has to be looked into to understand what those words mean, but let's just let them sit for now. Let me just say this. The culmination of that journey was that I realized that 90% in tune, yeah, pretty nice. 95% in tune, yeah, pretty nice. 97, 98% in tune, wow, really nice. But something magic happened between 98% in tune and 99.9% in tune that stunned me.
Wow.
And it was a career defining moment. Now, I will say, sadly, I'm rarely in a position to be exploring that high level of accuracy that I'm referring to. But it is there. Rarely has anyone heard it. And certainly you have benefited from it.
Yeah.
And setting aside, the absolute values of particular frequencies, the relativity, which is what we're discussing now, is achievable at a high level of accuracy. And that's when the real difference actually occurs. The reason most people don't think there's any difference in piano tuning is because they're comparing 90% to 92%.
Yes.
Well, there isn't much difference there. Compare 92% to 99%, and now you're going to hear something. Even if you don't know what you're hearing, you'll experience the difference, I personally believe. And that's what I feel like what I leave behind for people who may or may not understand what I've done. They will hear the purity of that alignment, to be elaborated on, and have an experience of good vibrational coherence, and it will be meaningful to them, just like it was meaningful to you.
I love what you say about that difference between 98% and 99.5%. And it's that it's when a person, I forgot who said this, but from another field, it's when you go, I think it was Tony Robbins who said, when you go from excellent to outstanding, it's now you're dealing with decimals. It's so small, the increments, but it's so hard to make a step upwards in that direction. You, as a former mountaineering man, have described